Welcome everyone to another video and what will hopefully be the final installment in the Sonos Subwoofer repair. Hopefully you've seen the first two parts to this, where the first one we diagnosed what was wrong with the board. Second part, we fixed the fault in the middle section of this board, which was the voltage regulator that powers the controller, all the other stuff. That was all good. We confirmed it was working. Now we're just going to close out some loose ends. We're going to replace all the capacitors on this board. Not that I expect that they've failed necessarily, but they are Chinese capacitors. They're 7 years old, so we're going to replace them with brand new Nichicon, hopefully from Japan capacitors. I don't know where they're made these days. Yeah, so I'm just going to show you a couple of updates to some tools on the bench for a bit of context on how we're going to do this, and let's just dive in and get started. Now, first thing I need to talk about on the bench, we have a brand new Hakko FR-410 desoldering station. Anyone who knows what these are, they are quite the investment for the workshop or home shop, and I am really glad to have one of these finally. I have been harassed by other technicians to buy a desoldering station for a long time, and I finally have Hakko's flagship desoldering station. So thank you for everyone who watches my videos and helps me justify crazy purchases like this. It's time to retire the old Goot old girl. I've had this thing for over a decade, this desoldering tool. It's served me really well, but she's had her day, I think. So that's it for the desoldering stuff. The other thing we need to talk about is my microscope setup, which a lot of you mentioned in the previous video. So I just wanted to show you, I have added a linear stage to this thing. So now I can move the camera up and down without having to remount my entire head. I don't fully trust this thing yet because it is from Amazon and I'm not sure how strong it is. And I am also using a 3D printed mount for it. So yeah, I'm putting a lot of faith in this thing, but I did design and engineer this pretty well, I think, and we will see how it performs for this. So we're going to set up and we're going to get started. This macro setup's going to be a little bit different. I'll start off really close so you can see the desoldering gun in action and how well it cleans out the holes, and then we'll move to a more wide angle so you can see the whole thing, replacing capacitors and all that with a different lens, because this lens doesn't have very good depth of field because it's such a high magnification and focal length. And yeah, hopefully you just get a better overall view looking down on the whole board. So let's get started and get this thing finished. All right, so let's get started. We're going to desolder our first capacitor, and I'll show you close up what this Hakko FR-410 can do. Not a paid promotion. I paid for this with my own money, and I will give you my honest review of this thing. So basically we have to drop it down on the pin, move it around a bit till it melts everything, and then pull it through with a vacuum. That's how these desoldering stations generally work. Got that one. That one came loose. This other one seems to be on a ground plane. So yeah, that one doesn't want to come off. Interesting. Well, you're seeing this firsthand. Doesn't want to let go. I think I'm going to have to put some leaded solder on this one. I'm not going to put any flux down because I do not want that crap going into the desoldering station. And my soldering station, the one I use for normal soldering, is an inductive iron. So this thing can melt anything pretty much. I really wanted an inductive type desoldering station, but I don't even know if they exist, to be honest. All right, let's try that again. Might have to increase the temperature maybe. Ooh, that melted. How am I going to show you this? Yeah, that got it. That could have been just me. Let's try another one. You know what? This is very hard to do. So I'm going to try to get like a side angle so you can see it go in. Like I said, the depth of field of this lens is not great. So let's do this one first. I think that got it, maybe. Try this again. Yeah, that was much better. Did that break loose? I don't think it did. I think we're not off to a good start with this. I'm pretty sure that is still holding on. But keep in mind, this is lead-free solder, and these are through-hole plated PCBs. So yeah, there we go. That got it. Yeah, so it's really struggling with the ground plane. I might try upping the temperature. Let's go up to like 400. Now I did try one earlier just to make sure this would all work, and but I didn't try the one next to it, which is on the ground plane by the looks of it. So let's give this one a go. At 400. No. No bueno. That's disappointing. Might just need more temperature. I don't know. Let's try again. Yep, that did it. All right, well, maybe I need to do a bit more learning. Maybe that's just outside its capabilities. I don't know yet. We're just going to keep going with this, and let's get all these capacitors changed. Right, so I've rejigged a few things. We're going to see how this goes. I guess what I'm trying to say is this is what it is. I can't guarantee everything is going to stay in frame because I am not watching, but I think I can try to keep this in the sort of center, and let's just see what happens. So I sort of had a bit of a ponder about this desoldering station, and I think I'm going to try to just put some leaded solder onto the tip. And that seems to be working. So we're going to try that. That seems to be getting us by. I think it's more to do with just thermal transfer of this lead-free soldering, because this board was probably wave soldered when it was done originally. And these all should be loose now, and they are. So we are free to pull this stack of capacitors out of the PCB. The problem is there is a crap load of glue holding these in, and I also need to pay attention to the polarity also. So I'm going to try to get these out, but I need to mark the board also. There we go, there's one. Try not to stab myself. Always check your silk screening to make sure it matches what we actually have here. So negative this side, negative that side, negative this side, negative that side. So the flats are the negatives. I'm happy with that, but I will set these capacitors somewhere that I can see just to double check, because I am very paranoid about this sort of stuff. Doesn't matter how many times you check, you still manage to screw it up somehow. And these are 1200 microfarad. Perfect. I really want to clean this board, but I also don't want to because this glue is diabolical. It does not just peel off like hot melt. It is quite well fixed to the board. And these capacitors should be basically the same size. They are a bit shorter, but the diameter should be the same. I'm not exactly sure how I want to do this. I think I will do them one at a time. ground plane is definitely crap. Like it is, it's fighting even the Thermaltronics iron, and there's not much that stops this thing usually. I have soldered directly onto metal chassis with this iron and I've never had a problem. So I am tempted to switch to my big tip. Since I've got my other iron right next to me now, I'm just gonna flow solder onto both of them, I think. Man, this does not even want to take solder. This is crazy. There you go. Ground plane is a bit smaller over this side, so a little bit easier to manage, I think. I think I take back what I said. Once you put lead-free solder on this desoldering station kicks the ass out of my Thermaltronics one. It can reflow these joints a lot easier, but you've got to have that enough solder on there for it to get a good thermal contact. Nice. Getting the hang of this, I think. 1. 2. These Nichicons feel quite a bit more substantial than the... You know what? Just before we pop these last ones in, let's do a quick comparison of the Cap Exons, because I don't have any spares to do any testing afterwards. So this is a Cap Exon, 100 microfarad, 400 volt. 90 microfarad, 0.6 ohms. That doesn't seem very good to me. But let's have a peek. ESR's not a lot different, I guess, because it's 400 volts, the ESR's higher. I have seen that in other capacitors. Seems to be a thing. Capacitance is right on the money, though, with these Nichicons, as you would expect. 98 that time, 50. Yeah, the ESR is about the same. So I'd say, look, the Cap Exons are a little bit, tiny bit down on capacitance, but still within any sort of spec, I would say. And the polarity of these ones you do not want to screw up. Not at 400 volts. Or not at any voltage really, but yeah, these ones are going to bite hard if they get put in backwards. Ugh, I really don't like how the soldering looks on this board. It will do, but I don't know how I can get it any better, to be honest. It just doesn't look great because of all the masking and everything. That is everything other than a polymer capacitor. I don't think we're missing anything. I will talk about one capacitor in there in a second. Actually, let's just talk about it now. So that's a 68 microfarad, and I thought I had ordered everything, but apparently I didn't order that one. So I popped it back in, which is not great because it's right next to that heat sink, but I'm just going to roll the dice on that. We've changed every other capacitor except that little guy there. I could have probably put a 47 in or 100 and it probably would have been fine, but I decided to just leave it in there because it tests fine anyway. Yeah, so I think we're done. We'll probably just inspect the soldering up close after washing it, and we'll test it. All right, so we'll just have a quick look around the PCB at my solder joints. I am really close at the moment, so that one looks fine. That looks fine. Looking good. Just want to make sure we don't have any bridges or anything weird in these little ones. They look good. I might redo that one off camera. Good, 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 good. All right, I'm happy with that. I am going to just fix up, I think it was this one, just because it doesn't have a nice concentric ring around it. It's a little bit weird. I'm going to flow some glue between the capacitors. I'll give you sort of a B-roll of that at the end, and then we're going to throw it back in and let's just see if this works, because I think that's about it at this point. Oh, that doesn't look great. What the hell is that? No, that's not connected to anything. False alarm. Carry on. Definitely not my finest work. It actually looks worse on camera. I just need it to be functional and hold them together and stop them from vibrating too much. The little caps, I just put a little bit at the base, but the big ones I sort of tried to reinforce between them and also onto the PCB, just because they're so heavy. And they went nuts with the other stuff as well, but you're really supposed to use like a Solastic or a silicon-based compound rather than this hot melt, but that's all I've got, and I'm not going to go and buy it just for this subwoofer repair. I think it'll work. In hindsight, I probably should have tested this before I went nuts with the glue, but let's throw it in and hopefully it still works. Ooh, I like that sound. I do like the layout, and I like the little alignment pins for the PCB. Very much appreciated. Though it was not done for repairability, it was done for assembly and quality control, I am sure. I dropped the screw and I don't know where it went. Found it. Ugh. Ooh, that really pulls down on the PCB. All right, moment of truth. We're going to connect power and we're going to try and actually put some sound through it this time. Make sure it actually works. Oh, here, gotta plug it in. That would help. No blow up, please. That would be nice. We're good. It still turns on. I'm going to let it boot up and we will try putting some audio through it, I think. All right, I finally got this thing working in another room. It took a little bit of effort, but it is working. The driver is moving. And I thought there was something wrong with it because it was really quiet and I didn't realize how much this enclosure actually does. So there's not much happening. If I put this on, watch this. It's going to make a lot of chuffing noises because there's no screws in, but... Yeah, so the enclosure, it's insane how much it actually does in a subwoofer in like a tuned cabinet, and it is working really well. Drivers move a lot. It's quite surprising, actually. Anyway, it is definitely working, so I guess we're going to assemble this thing, try to get all the screws back in. I think I'll put all the screws in and then test it to make sure there's no air leaks, because that's really important unless you like that really bad chuffing noise, which is not good. So yeah, gonna try and get this back together as good as I can. I might just wipe down all the seals and everything first, but it is working. So here we are at the finish line. As you've seen, I think I've proven that it does work. I haven't put this plate back on yet. I'm going to leave that off for a couple of days just to make sure there's no loose ends, everything's happy. And then I'll put some double-sided tape just in a few places, not as much as there was before, and just stick that back on. You don't really need to see that, but it does work. I think I've proven that. And yes, you can fix these things within reason. I will overlay the parts that I used in this repair. Don't just go and order them and assume that is what is wrong with your Sonos subwoofer. I did spend a bit of time researching, and there are some other failures I have seen with these. Around the Wi-Fi card, apparently something can happen with that. I haven't encountered that. And something else can also happen in the switch mode power supply. I have seen people that have completely gutted the power supply and replaced it with their own switch mode power supply. And look, the worst case that we had in this one, we could have actually put another 12-volt regulated mini supply in there probably to fix this thing if we couldn't have repaired those subcomponents. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video series. I know it went for quite a few parts, but I wanted to do this right and make sure other people can try and save these subwoofers. And look guys, I just want to, there's a few people that have said Sonos is absolute garbage. I get it. On the surface, if you've never used one, I completely understand where you're coming from. It does look like a cheap consumer piece of hardware, and in some ways, I guess you could call it that. But I can tell you, I have taken apart quite a few subwoofers, up to very expensive ones, and there is no subwoofer on the market that is built well that I have seen in this day and age. They all use plate amplifiers that are made in Chinese factories. They are garbage. Most of them do not have good capacitors, even on subwoofers costing upwards of $8,000. And we have all the caps here. I went through and tested them. They all tested perfect. So maybe China capacitors have improved with time. I don't exactly know. Maybe some of them have just got their act together. Maybe it's quality control from Sonos testing them. I'm not sure. But, you know, 7 years on a Chinese capacitor and it still tests fine. I've seen Japanese capacitors fail in that time. But yeah, it is of its age. It's not perfect. It does have some cheap components in it, but I believe, me personally, having used multiple Sonos products for about 8 years now, I've been pretty happy with them. And there is this sort of weird thing where, regardless of their specs, they do things that you would not expect them to be able to do, with DSP witchcraft, with all this other weird stuff that these things can do. Like even testing the subwoofer in my garage, it's shaking everything, even though not a lot is happening around here. It is a bit like witchcraft with some of this stuff. And you know, this subwoofer with my Sonos Arc, I've been really impressed with it for just a simple home theater setup without wires running everywhere. If I want the most intimate, visceral audio experience, of course I use my electrostatic headphones. If I want to listen to some vinyl and be all hipster, I will just use my stereo vintage speakers. But when I just want to watch a movie and forget about it, I use Sonos. And that's sort of the end of it. I don't want a crazy home theater setup with a home theater receiver that, to be honest, you're not going to fix either. If a home theater receiver breaks, you're screwed. Most repair techs will not touch those except for the manufacturers when they're under warranty. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I hope you enjoyed this series again, and I will see you in another video soon. I'm going to be revamping some things on my bench, replacing my monitor, doing some new lighting. You can see some of it already. I'm just testing it out at the moment. So it will be a couple of weeks before the next video, just while I finalize and test a few things, but we'll be back with another project very soon. Until then, I will see you in the next video.